This episode of the KrakCast is brought to you by our friends at BigDoor24.pl. It's a new free service dedicated to helping expats to rent or buy a property and earn cash back on successful mortgage applications. BigDoor24.pl also has lots of tips and advice on renting and buying in Poland, so make sure you check them out and use the special promo code KrakCast to get a great cash back offer. And now, on with the show. Welcome back to the news, guys. Temperature is above zero today, people. How are you dealing with the winter so far, Mike?
Actually, I hate when the temperature gets a little warmer after it's been freezing, because that basically means everything starts dripping onto you. And you know what's on these buildings here. It's grime and bird shit. So basically, you're getting showered in that walking down the streets right now.
It is like a winter wonderland, isn't it, Michael?
Hey, let's start out with some good news this week. The good news for the Polish film industry, actually. The news comes from Hollywood. Last week, the announcements were made for the nominations for this year's Academy Awards. A Polish film, Cold War, Zimna Wojna, got 3 nominations. Very impressive. Best Director, Best Cinematography, and Best Foreign Film. Guys, what do you think? Big deal, huh?
I'm just wondering who had to sleep with who and how often to get that done.
Ouch! Mike, come on.
Haven't seen it yet. Have you, John?
I have seen 80% of it.
That's a strange percentage of a movie to have seen.
Okay, maybe 90. I had to stop a little bit before the end. I'll go back to it. You know what? I don't want to make this into a review. Maybe we'll talk about it later. But the cinematography, it is very striking visually. It's in black and white if you haven't seen it. Very striking visually. Very well done. You know, they did something. What do you guys think about this? You know what they did for this film? I think it's great. They used the old school aspect ratio. In other words, it's not 16:9 to fit, modern widescreen televisions. It's the 4:3. Like more like a square, and so it has big black bars on either side of the picture. Makes it more authentic or distracting in today's age?
I think I'd be distracted by that. And is that why I only saw 80% of the film, because of the formatting?
Nice format, Joe.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, very, very nerdy reason for liking a movie.
I like it. It gives it that authentic feel. But you know what? One of the things that stands out, apart from, like I said, it's very visually impressive, but the performances are really fantastic. And this actress, whose name I've suddenly forgotten, she's extremely impressive. Sometimes you see, give me an example of I'm sure you could think of this. Sometimes you see a film where an actor or an actress has learned how to sing or how to perform musically for the film, right? And it usually doesn't work. But in this one, it seems to be the reverse. She is a trained vocalist who learned how to act, I guess you could say, for the film. It goes the other way, and you can really tell she's very, very gifted, in terms of as a vocalist.
So it's another fall in love with a singer movie, is it? I've seen A Star Is Born. I hope it's better than that.
That's a love story. It's supposed to be kind of semi-biographical, something like the story of the director's his parents, how they fell in love. Not exactly, but it's based on their story. But
have you seen A Star Is Born? Bradley Cooper mumbling into his whiskey and singing incoherently for 2 hours.
So you're not a fan?
It was dreadful. I do not know what the critics saw on this one. Give me Bohemian Rhapsody any day of the week.
But do you think, Dave, I know you have strong opinions on this. We talked about this.
Things.
You have strong. We've talked about this before. In today's Academy Awards, let's not pretend it's about recognizing greatness. Black Panther is nominated for Best Movie this year, so give me a fucking break, right? But it kind of been devalued a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't like the 10 Best Picture nomination.
Yeah,
cop-out that they introduced a few years ago.
How wide can they cast the net? It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, let's look at the last...
Everybody's a winner.
Who won the last few Best Pictures? I mean, like Moonlight, La La Land.
Yeah, these really the critics' favorites, right?
Crap films, Birdman, the one where, Leonardo DiCaprio's raped by a bear. It was dreadful. The Revenant, was it?
The Revenant. Was he raped by the bear?
No.
Basically, yeah, okay. So.
I've added extra penis to that scene, excuse me.
So you think they're going to start going the other way now and kind of become like the Grammys, where they just give the award to whoever sold the most tickets?
I'm sure they could come up with some kind of compromise, an algorithm that takes into account critics' reviews, but also box office and popularity, so it's actually incorporated into the final results. So there's still like a little bit of mystery because you don't know who the Academy will vote for, but you can guess that this movie, because it was popular, will have a better chance than this movie that nobody ever heard of.
An algorithm, like they should make an app for Academy Award winners?
Hey, it make life simpler, and actually people might start watching the Oscars again.
You know, it's interesting.
Have they figured out who's hosting it or not?
I have no idea.
I think nobody's hosting it now. That's going to be the hardest gig to fill in the world.
Best option. You know, Polish cinematographers are actually very well established in Hollywood. Janusz Kaminski has been the longtime cinematographer for Spielberg. He's done like all of his movies for the last 25 years. There are others as well. And actually, there are a lot of Poles who are, set designers, costume designers, kind of behind the scenes, but haven't really made it to the director's chair. And let's not talk about Polanski, Roman Polanski, different subject.
Well, that's typical Hollywood there, isn't it?
But maybe, I don't know, maybe this could be the beginning of something new. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, good luck to Cold War. We'll find out, what is the end of February with the Academy Awards, I think?
You're asking the wrong crowd.
I think it's in about a month or so.
Yeah, the end of February.
End of February, yeah. Anyway, good luck, Cold War. Moving on. Interesting news out of Warsaw this week. The current government announced plans to establish a new program they're calling Mama 4 Plus, kind of modeled after 500 Plus, of course. Mama 4 Plus works like this. If you are a mother with 4 kids, or at least 4 kids, and you didn't work enough, or maybe you didn't work at all, and you don't have enough credit to fund a retirement pension, the government will step in and, well, give you the pension anyway. I'm not sure about the amount. Some of the details are missing, but the idea is to have a more family-friendly, pro-child environment. That seems to be the idea, obviously. Guys, what do we think?
I think this is a really cheap move to get votes, because it's not going to entice people that don't have any kids to have kids, because you're not going to go from thinking, I'm not sure if I want to have a kid, to, I think I'll have 4 kids now. It's not really going to make much of a difference. There's not that many families. I mean, there are families with lots of kids, but I think it's like 75,000 families or something like that. Those are the stats that are going to be actually eligible for this new program.
75,000 families. So it sounds like what Mike's saying. A vote winner that isn't going to cost a huge amount, which ties in with a more general narrative of a pro-baby kind of policy of government grants.
And I love the way they put plus on everything. This reminds me of the 90s with Super Nintendo, and every game was Super Mario, Super Donkey Kong, and now it's like plus everything here.
So is that your default, just to assume that it's a cynical move to get votes? Maybe they're trying to respond to the very real demographic issues that are kind of threatening European demographic stability in the
it's
near
not
future.
Battling that issue. I do like the sentiment where you have mothers who have raised families, put in a lot of effort and work, and more kids generally is better for society. So this is kind of a way that we can respect that. I understand the sentiment, but I don't believe they're doing it honestly for that reason. They're doing it for the votes. If they wanted to increase demographics, they need to start the other end with people who have no kids and entice them to have kids.
Well, we already have the 500 plus for having kids. So what else are they supposed to do?
I think Mike's not saying it's a bad program per se. It's not going to be that expensive, and if they're poor and they've raised 4 kids, they deserve this small grant anyway. I don't know why I keep calling it a grant. That word is just stuck in my head now. But is it actually an effective policy to raise the birth rate? I think what Mike's saying is no, it's not, and I think he's right.
Well, there's a political aspect to this, as there is with almost everything these days. It's being savaged in the press, most of the press, because, let's be honest, the vast majority of the people who have 4 or more children are, we're generalizing here, they're going to be more sympathetic to peace than they would be to PO, right? These are going to be, again, we're generalizing, but more likely to be rural families than urban city families, right? Isn't that the main reason behind the criticism of the program?
I think that's fair to say, and I think it's probably true anyway. But I do love how these programs... I have a friend at work who has 2 daughters, so he was, able to get those 500 zlotys. You know what he spent that money on? An Apple Watch. So...
Well, okay, then I could say that maybe the money he would have spent on the Apple Watch anyway was still available for the kids. I mean, you can't say this exact 500 zlotys went to that exact
but basically when he knew he was going to be getting the money, that was the first thing that he wanted to get.
I mean, it's kind of obvious that not every, zloty given out for kids is going to the kids, I guess.
I'm sure Tim Cook would argue an Apple Watch will give you a lifetime health saving in data management anyway.
Yeah, possible. Can I connect this to one of my own pet peeve issues, and that's discounts for students? Because I don't know if I've stated this before, but I have a burning hatred for discounts for students. Okay, if you're going to bitch and complain about the impact of the budget on mothers who have 4 kids who spent the last several decades raising 4 people for the country, can we also cast a questioning, critical eye at the discounts that students get for public transport? What kind of impact does that have on the budget? So if we're gonna pick on mothers who raise 4 kids, can we also pick on students who have like 7 different iPhones in their pockets and still get half price tickets on buses and trams?
Yeah, I think we need to like explain this to our listeners because they may not realize that when we have these discounted prices, it's not that the ticket is half price. It's just the other half of the ticket is being paid for by the state. It's covering that difference.
But nobody's going to bite on my let's attack the students thing, no? Am I alone in that?
But I agree with you that, when they bitch about one thing, they need to... These are all discounts that we're all paying for, and we should decide
I'm getting off
which
subject
ones
here,
make
but
sense.
students are like a sacred cow in this country.
Yeah,
and
maybe real sideways roll
maybe
move there.
30 years
just to
ago,
attack
maybe 30 years ago they needed the discount, but today, look at the way they're dressed, look at the gadgets they have, look at the cars they drive, and this burns me every time I'm on the tram and I see them walk up to the little machine and they get the ugrove, they get the half price ticket, and I just paid full price. It really kills me every time.
Never really thought
no,
about me. Yeah.
no
Student
sympathy?
Discounts are so deeply established.
They
as a
are. That's why I hate
norm.
them so much.
Genuinely, you've caught me off guard. I honestly don't have an opinion on it. I'm a bit frightened.
How many times have you been in line at Cinema City behind somebody, again, checking their new iPhone and, wearing their 500 zlotys worth of clothes? And, I'll have a student ticket, please.
When I was younger,
Fuck you.
And some of my friends were students and some weren't, there was always great, mocking from the students that we didn't have said discounts, and it was all done in a very mirthful way. I think even students don't think they've some sacred right to these discounts. They just exist.
Yeah,
and I know people who have actually signed up for courses to count as students, where the course costs you like 300 zlotys a semester,
right,
just to get the discounts.
Yeah, discounts on PKP, the train network and all public transport, and it can be worth it signing up for some nothing course for...
All right, we get it.
All right, I got it off my chest. I feel better. Okay, I'm sorry. Dave, this week, Poland and your country, a little bit of a butting heads a little bit over some interesting issues here.
Bit of a ding-dong at Davos, yeah. Mateusz Morawiecki kind of called out tax havens in the EU in a round table when he was sitting right next to our Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar. And it was seen very much as a kind of a snub against Ireland, him calling out our dodgy, shady corporate tax procedures. But I'm not too worried about this. This is something that goes back and forth all the time. The European Commission ain't going to be able to change the rules on this, and I'll tell you why. You can't have a double Irish or a single malt without a Dutch sandwich.
Okay, can you explain that, please?
Basically, the vehicle in Ireland it performs one part of the task of getting all the money to the Cayman Islands.
Sorry, Dutch sandwich sounds like something really rude.
The Dutch.
Is there any marmalade in it?
The Dutch have their own interesting vehicles. They are the largest, if you want to call this a tax haven. People don't, but yes, they have a lot to answer here as well. Jean-Claude Juncker himself was caught up in the Lux paper scandals. The head of the EU Commission spent basically his entire time as Luxembourg's premier restructuring their economy to exactly this type of model where they do single tax rulings with Amazon, all these big companies, and basically they get to establish a rate way below 1%. So Ireland are far from alone in the EU of having these slightly shady practices, so we know that we'll be able to
what I never
this.
understand is countries that complain that other countries have these, tax structures that incentivize other companies to go there, that they claim they're losing money. Why don't these countries, instead of asking, to them to change those rules, to change their own rules to be more competitive or to bring in other kind of,
Well, it's a very complicated subject. Obviously, we can get into it in more detail if you like, but basically it's called base erosion and profit shifting. And there's this
Dutch
argument.
sandwich.
Yeah, and now the reformers in the EU want to tax the revenue rather than the profits at the end of the day, which is where the big ideological clash comes. Look, we could go back and forth. It's great, actually. Ireland has this great thing where even die-in-the-wool red liberals will give you the most right-wing analysis of corporate tax structures in the world.
and the investment certification and propositions and other words I can make up as well.
And we phased out what's known as the double Irish and brought in something called the single malt, and now we're phasing out the single malt.
All whiskey metaphors. Yeah.
We're phasing out the single malt, so I'm open to ideas on what we should call our next little stroke. I'm thinking maybe I was looking at some of the
Straight no chaser.
Eyeball.
I was looking at some of the names of the tax havens, and the Virgin Islands is one. I'm thinking maybe a Virgin Mary.
Could be. Dave, isn't there a large degree of truth to the fact, or to the accusation, to the suggestion that the the Celtic Tiger transformation was due in large part to Ireland going its own way on tax policy. And
Yeah, but it predates even the EU. It goes back to the special economic zone set up in the late 60s and early 70s. Apple have been in Ireland a long time. These are deeply held relationships. And Ireland's corporate tax returns are a massive part of our exchequer. We collected over 8 billion in corporate tax returns, most of that down to US multinationals headquartered themselves in Ireland. So while there is an element of more classic tax evasion in the Irish financial centres, more of your dodgy kind of the money never really does that in Ireland and it's moved out. That is a small part of our corporate tax overall structure. Basically, an awful lot of the biggest companies in the world genuinely have their headquarters in Dublin, in Cork. Apple, Intel, Facebook, Google,
heavy hitters,
LinkedIn, all have thousands of employees. Intel employ over 10,000 people in their leagues.
Well, and in fairness, it wasn't just tax policy. There are some other.
Yes, John, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, but what I mean,
a bit clever apart from that.
No. That was a big reason. It's not the only reason. For language reasons, maybe for other.
Do you know Ireland produces in one plant in Ireland? We produce all of the world's Viagra. We're one of the biggest pharmaceutical manufacturing economies in the world. One of the biggest agribusiness, like in terms of advanced agribusiness. We Glanbia have a massive operation in the US.
Wait, you make all that Viagra and still your population hasn't come back to pre-potato blight era?
Actually,
what are you guys doing?
Yeah, pre-potato blight levels of population would be very hard.
So do you think it was?
We have a very healthy birth rate, actually, unlike Poland.
You do. Do you think it was bad form for Morawiecki to confront Ireland like that, or
It's a forum for exchanging opinions. Leo Varadkar is the Irish Taoiseach. He is a trained ninja master in deflecting tax questions. It's an absolute basic requirement for the job.
Hey guys, before we continue, let me say a quick word about our friends at bigdoor24.pl. Yeah. If you're looking to buy, sell real estate, maybe looking for a place to rent for the next few months, bigdoor24.pl is where you start. They got a great deal on cash back for successful mortgage applications, and their agents will walk you through the process of getting the keys to your own place. So go to bigdoor24.pl/KrakCast if you want to help out the show. We got to pay for those limousines that pick us up and bring us to the studio here, right?
Best use that promo code.
/KrakCast. So Big Door 24 is where you want to go. Right. Let's talk about shopping on Sundays. This is something we forgot to mention in our previous shows this month. The
very interesting story that was you sent me.
What was it? It started January last year, I think. Beginning of the year, the shopping centers and stores had to be closed on certain Sundays. And last year, 2018, the shops were open on the first and third Sunday of the month, with some exceptions. And
I thought
now
it was the first and last.
Was it the first and last?
Yeah.
See, we still can't figure. I think you're right. Sorry, Mike. It was the first and last. Are you sure it wasn't the first and third?
First and last would also make more sense because it's easier to remember.
Yeah,
that
I guess so. Well, there's nothing easy to remember about that. Okay, let's say first and last. Anyway, on January 1st of this year,
over here. Come on.
3 weeks ago, it switched. We have one less Sunday to go shopping now. The only Sunday they're open is the last one of the calendar month, again, with some exceptions around Easter and Christmas and whatnot. And, last year we came to the conclusion here on the show, we talked about this, how the whole scheme seemed to be pretty successful because sales were steady or up, revenues were up, but the shops could close another day or two out of the month. So their costs were down a little bit, so retailers were kind of happy with this. But now it seems with the more restrictive policy that went into effect earlier this month, things are changing a bit. And now suddenly reversing, going back to last year's schedule, 2018 schedule, is back on the table, maybe due to some pressure from voters.
Usually you set things up very nicely, John, but I think what you're trying to say here is people are getting fed up with this fucking law when we can't get some bread on a Sunday when we're hungover. It's pissing me off so much. I'm so done with it. Something needs to be done. Take action. The streets, let's make some banners. We need to get rid of this.
Yellow vest, yeah.
Yeah. I don't really like running, though. There's not
let somebody else run.
On a Sunday, so might as well.
So last year you were okay with it. Now you're mad about it.
Yeah, I've been getting more progressively angry.
2 Sundays was okay, but 1 Sunday is...
The whole thing is stupid. What was wrong with the situation beforehand? What's this solved? Nothing. Are families sitting down having lovely, pleasant picnics all over the country because of this? No, small shops are closing. 8,000 to 10,000 small cash businesses have closed.
The big players.
That's an estimation. We finally have some input from the small business associations, and the word is back that it is hurting people. Hard-working people.
Mike, jump in here anytime.
It's hard to jump in when I pretty much agree with everything he says there. It's just annoying when you have to stop and think for a minute when you want to go shopping. Like, wait, what's the date today? It's okay. Yeah, I can go this weekend or not. It's like, or you forget that it's closed. You're just thinking about returning something that you forgot or going to the store to pick something up really quickly. And
it's the type of thing, if the EU introduced this, my God, you'd hear the backlash all around the world. Like, it'd be back off Brussels 1,000,000%. Like, it's a stupid law. Get rid of it.
And let's not forget, 2019 is supposed to be another transitional year. Remember, the goal next year is to have no Sundays, right? So we started with 2 last year, 1 this year, and apparently, that was the original plan. Next year, no Sundays at all. So do you see that happening now, or is the ship turning around?
It's an election year this year, so who knows what happens if a different government comes in. Maybe they'll decide to change it.
Is it part of a broader trend that I'm always saying that peace constantly roll back these initiatives? They throw these things out there, and then they seem to be more than willing to walk a lot of them back.
Yeah, and like you say, Dave, we've got feedback and statistics on what the law has meant for businesses, and it's the small businesses, the ones that were supposed to be the beneficiaries of the scheme, that have been hurt the most. The big players, the Tesco's and the Auchans and the Carrefours of the world, they will be okay, right? And they're going to survive. But I think we're seeing some the frustration is kind of boiling up to a point now where it's starting to get the attention of the people who have the power to change this kind of thing. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm with you, Dave. This is stupid, and let us shop whenever we want to shop. Yeah.
A rare moment on the KrakCast. It seems we're all in perfect harmony and agreement.
We all want to go buy stuff on Sunday.
Putting on a poncho.
KrakCast Zen.
Let's talk about Uber. Uber. They got a big center here in Krakow. They opened about 3 or 4 years here in Krakow, I think. And
they got an office on Lubitsch, right?
On Lubitsch, yeah. And up to this point, to be honest, I'm not really sure what they do. I mean, once your application, I don't know how the guts of the program there work.
Signing up drivers, insurance policies.
I guess not really the application, not really the tech side of things, but just admin and you say, personnel and whatnot. Well, that's going to change because this week they announced that they are putting mega money into Krakow, and they're going to hire about 300 people into a new research and development department that they're going to locate here. Now,
R&D lab sounds better.
R&D sounds more sexier, I guess. But you might be asking, what is there to research? What is there to develop? Well, Uber is expanding. You like that?
Well, I like that. Yeah. There's so many things one could research or develop.
Oh, but I mean, when you use the application, you think it's done.
It's an infinite.
You have Uber on your phone. What else is there? How do they make it? How do they improve it? Well,
I shouldn't have laughed. Sorry, it was rude. Excuse me.
Because these 300 people are not going to be working on the application that we're all familiar with. No, they're branching out in new directions. You might not know that Uber is very active in what they call the urban mobility space. Urban mobility space.
I hate that sentence so much.
And there are a number of test markets, most of them in America, but they might have 1 or 2 elsewhere, that are testing things like scooters and bikes and e-bikes and different ways to get from A to B that kind of supplement or complement their core business of ride sharing, obviously. And those 300 people are going to be working on those little scooters that seem to be destroying cities and urban life around the world. Nobody has a nice word to say about these goddamn scooters. They're free or almost free. You don't have to leave them in docking stations. You can just put them wherever, and that this has resulted in just they're littering sidewalks and pavements. They're up in trees. They're in canals. They're just everywhere. They're a mess. So anyway, not our problem now, but could be one day.
What are these scooters? I've never seen them.
No.
Basically, they're like little electric scooters. It's scooters. You know what a scooter is, right?
Yeah, but Uber, what do they get out of providing all these free scooters?
They get a little change out of it, and you can ride around, the plant or whatever, so it speeds up your commute. And they're also supposed to be bringing in electric bikes. What are they calling them? Jump bikes or something like that?
They're jump bike. That's the brand name. Jump bikes. Yes, electric bikes. And so
just walk, have some dignity, people.
That defeats the whole business model, I think, for Uber. They don't want you to walk.
I mean, how can they make money off of that? Oh, they'll figure something out.
Funny thing.
Our listeners, John, not Uber's executives.
A few nights ago, I got together with some people from work, and we're all leaving, about 8 or 9 of us. And when we got outside, everybody pulled out their phone. Everybody called their own Uber. Right, so 8 or 9 people going their different ways. And the funny thing is that Uber, part of their pitch is that they reduce traffic. One car carries many people, so those people leave their own car at home. There's supposed to be fewer cars on the road, but in fact, ironically, there are more cars on the road because of Uber and drive-sharing programs. And that was a good example. 8 or 9 of us got in separate cars and went our separate ways, whereas pre-Uber, we would have shared a taxi, we would have left early to catch the last tram or whatever. So there's no doubt that Uber, in fact, results in more cars on the street. Irony?
I agree with you. You made that point previously on the show, and I thought it was an interesting one. All right, and as well, the Uber cars gathering at the entry points to the old town, which they're not allowed to enter, is going to become a real problem as well. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many ways you can just rebrand a taxi. It's still a taxi,
It's a car that gets me from here to there that isn't mine. Yeah, it's a taxi.
Speaking of transport, it seems to be one of our favorite subjects here on the show, isn't it? We love transport. We love talking about cars and trams and buses and roads and stuff like that. We've got 3 quick stories we're going to kind of bundle together here. One of them is related to a construction zone you may have seen during your travels around the city. It has to do with the train line that starts at the train station, obviously, goes south, it crosses over, Kopernika, and then it goes past Hala Targova. It's that old bridge that's being kind of expanded now, and it's a train line that continues. It goes basically parallel to Starovyshilna, goes past the Jewish cemetery, and then crosses the river on its way to Zaboche and whatnot. Anyway, total renovation. They're expanding it, I think, from 1 track to 2 or 2 tracks to 4 to obviously increase the capacity. And the interesting thing here is that up until now, and for the last probably 150 years, that train line has been on top of a mound of earth, right? It's elevated, but it's still on dirt, ground. Well, what they're doing now is they're putting that train line on columns. Columns it's still going to be elevated, but there's going to be open space underneath it for the first time in forever. And this presents huge opportunities to kind of reshape this part of the city, right? Kind of change the urban geography. And suddenly there's going to be free space where there was none before. And so now the argument before the city council is what to do with that space. And they're basically looking at 3 options they cannot agree. Option 1, turn it into parking for cars, which has appeal for obvious reasons, but we're short of parking. Option 2, turn it into a park, like a green park, also has obvious appeal. Option 3, turn it into like a commercial shopping zone, kind of mixed, a little bit of park, mostly shops and things like that. This is like a once in a millennia chance to reshape the city. Guys, what do we do with this new space under the train tracks?
Man, I really hope they come up with a good idea, because what I'm worried about right now is a lot of these members on the council are probably wondering how the city can make money off of this. They're not going to sell space beneath train tracks as residential areas, I hope.
You never know around here.
With parking spaces, they can make some money off of that, but they're going to get a lot of people pissed off, because a lot of people actually just want green zones there. There's aren't that many parks around.
Green zones don't make money.
Yeah, exactly. They cost money. They don't make money. Shops, on the other hand, they could make money off of that, but they can't be 100% sure, and that's already a pretty big investment as well. So I'm afraid they're just going to go into parking spaces.
I think they're going to do the parks thing. I hope. Yeah, I'm going to have a bit of faith in Mark Krofsky's new regime here. And
Dave, you say parking or parks?
Parks.
The green parks.
Yeah, I don't have a car. I don't have a car. I genuinely don't care where I live in this park.
Well, like I said, it's a once in a millennium, not millennium, millennium is 1,000 years. What's 100? Once in a century chance to reshape the city. It's a big deal, and it connects 2 parts of the city that have been next to each other forever, obviously, but you couldn't walk from one to the, for pedestrians and whatnot. Getting around the city will be much different after this train line is finished. But I think we're looking at another 3 years or so before it's totally.
It's an interesting point. It really bisects the old town of Kashmir's.
That's the good word. That's the word I was looking for. Bisects. That's what it does.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this now, because I cross under it so many times a day, a week, and I never really even thought about what the space could be done with. It's a fascinating little challenge for the city, and one we're going to keep you updated on. And if they build car parks and mess it up, we're going to be fuming.
We'll see how it turns out. Next transport story.
Too, right, John?
What?
You're for parks too.
I'm for. You know what? I'll bet you it's going to be divided either in 2 or maybe even all 3 of those options.
What would you like?
I can't. What would I like?
Because Mike's right, Krakow lacks for green spaces. The ones it has are lovely, but it could do with a few more.
In that area, it kind of does. Yeah, I just don't see that much space. It's so valuable. And I can't see the city maintaining something that big. the parking situation is real. It's not going to get better. It's horrible. So I can't imagine how at least some portion of that space wouldn't be given over to paid parking. It has to. What else can they do?
Few Krispy Kreme outlets, maybe.
That'd be great. I'll be there on the first day.
Oh yeah, I'd sign up for that too.
Mike, tell us about our next transport story, a park and ride situation.
Oh, park and ride. They've been developing for a couple of years in Krakow. Basically, the idea is that you can park your car at the terminal station of a tram line and jump onto the tram so you don't have to drive into the city. Some statistics are showing that, upwards of 160,000 cars are driving into the city daily. That's a huge amount. So, any car less is good. Only problem is these parking lots, instead of, it's a parking lot. It's just like asphalt and gravel flat. They're taking years to build. They have a lot of complicated issues, but even when they start, they're throwing so much bureaucracy into it that instead of taking like 6 weeks, it takes 6 months or longer. And we only have a couple of hundred spots right now. And by 2020, they're only planning on having...
It's a very complicated structure. Oh, no, wait a minute.
They're only going
It's a bunch of lines on the ground. How hard can this be?
Well, apparently one of the laws they changed was saying like how close a spot can be to like a residential area. And they changed that law halfway through the year last year. So they had to like stop building some of these car parks, get new permits, reassign like the space and everything like that, and boom, they're blaming that as one of the main reasons.
You wait 5 years anyway for the parking robots. Have you seen those things?
Parking robots?
Yeah, they hook onto the front of the car and they can take over the handbrake or whatever, and they basically push the car into the space ultra quick, and they can maximize,
and use the space better.
The space.
I also don't understand, they're spending so much money on this. Why don't they have multi-level parking as well? Because that's the main problem here. Is they're only planning on having like 1,600, 2,000 spots next year, and when you have 160,000 cars coming in, 1% is not going to really have much of an impact on the traffic in the city.
That costs a lot. Multi-level parking is super expensive. That you have to have people pay for it, and I don't see people here. They're not going to pay 10 zlotys an hour or whatever.
But they're already paying
park in a place like
in
that.
town.
But they're not paying that much. What is it? 4 zlotys an hour? I think.
Yeah, but it's going to go up next year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We should make parking the subject of a completely different show because I have a lot of opinions on that too. But people here will not pay to park in a defined, organized place. I just don't see it happening.
We should know it's a huge problem in every city. I mean, it's a really tricky logistical problem having enough parking spaces in the center of a busy town.
Mike, do you know how many of these parking right places there are in Krakow? The only one I know there are others, but the one that I know from, I've seen it myself, is the one in Ruchai at the end of the tram line down there.
There's Górka, and there's one or two other ones. Right now, there's about, and they all each have like 120 spots. So like altogether, there's like 500
huge.
spots.
It's not huge, yeah. So I don't see it making even if they're massive, even if those 120 parking spaces are taken up every day by people who would otherwise drive into the city, I don't see that making a big impact.
And I'll be honest, I just don't see the appeal. You still have to get in your car and get through traffic to get to this parking spot, to then get on a tram that might get also stuck in traffic with a bunch of smelly hobos on it.
That's our next story.
And then you still have to go back to the car. You might as well just stay in your car and spend
people drive their cars because they want to be in their cars. So, why are you going to say, I'll drive halfway and then I'll get out and then I'll wait for the tram? Like you say, it's just ridiculous, but we'll see. Speaking of smelly hobos, seriously, tell us about our last story about transport.
Oh, yes. Some brilliant woman on the city council suggested that how about we have the hobos actually stay in the trams?
It's another word for bums or homeless people if you don't know, right?
Yeah, it's homeless people, basically.
Just for a second, sorry. The Krakow councillor, Anna Prokop, something like Stasieczka.
David, you're so good with Polish names.
I'm a sadist for reading out
good with Polish names
on our radio.
She also helps run a hospital somewhere. This is apparently where she got the idea. A lot of homeless people, dying of hypothermia, sad but true. Cold weather and alcohol is not a great combination for the homeless population of any city. But she was suggesting at these tram stops and where the trams have the roundabouts, why don't we just have a tram, park there, heat it up, and we can have porta potties there so they can get a cup of tea, heat up, go do their business outside. I mean, in the porta potty, hopefully. And it's just, that is the dumbest idea.
Wait. She's suggesting that it's okay for the homeless people to basically live on the tram, but when the tram gets to the end of the line, give them facilities to do other things they need to do. Is that right?
Or tram actually stays there at the end of the line, the tram company, MPK, would actually
at night when it's done.
She didn't suggest exactly when. She just basically says when it's cold.
I think Andrzej Kulik, vice president of Krakow, put his finger right on the nail here when he said There are 650 places in warm night shelters. It's just that you need to be sober to stay there for the night. That's like a rule. So a lot of people that do spend the night on the street, it's because they want to have a drink, and that's fair enough. You know, that's the reason why they're living on the street in the first place in many cases. I'm not being unsympathetic. What I'm trying to say is the correct infrastructure for helping homeless people already exists in Krakow. It's existed for a long time. The idea of putting extra trams on is a ridiculous one. That's why I tried to read out the lady's name, because it's a stupid idea. And it just puts pressure onto spokespeople like from MPK, who have to then come out and explain why
we
it's
hate
not
homeless
possible.
people. Yeah.
So let me just say, let me give Marek from MPK the last word here. All loops are needed for traffic to flow smoothly, and even unused ones sometimes serve to get trams blocked, for example, due to track failure. And I think that this idea would not be liked by the local residents.
I don't think it'll be liked by anybody. Like, trams smell bad enough as is.
Anyone who's been on the Krakow Trans system at peak times or any time will tell you it's busy already. It just doesn't have the capacity to perform the service that you want.
And we've all been there. You step on the tram and there's this stench, there's somebody, a homeless guy. Again, I know they have enough problems already, and sorry to pile on.
I'm okay with that, as long as they're travelling and not just lying there all day. Like,
it's a mobile apartment for them. Yeah.
You think they're traveling, or are they, where are they going? Home? Oh, God.
Dude,
that sounded cruel. Sorry.
Cruel.
I take that back.
Maybe they're not actually homeless. They just forgot at which stop they leave.
I'm sorry. That was a low blow, but it was funny. Okay. Well, that wraps up our transportation talk.
We should do sports. What about Piontek moving to AC Milan?
One more thing before you interrupt. Sorry to interrupt your interruption, Dave, but as I was just about to say on the subject of sports, before we go, two things. Wisła Krakow. We talked a lot about Wisła lately, but here's an update. They somehow managed to keep their license to stay in the extra class of the highest division of Polish football.
Told you.
We can speculate on the backroom dealings that may have led to this development. We'll see what comes out in the future. They got Jakub Błaszczykowski is going to play with them either for no money or for almost no money. They've just brought in another name player this week. I think they're calling in some favors, kind of playing on the sympathy, nostalgia for the name of Wisła Krakow. We'll see what happens. They are by no means out of the financial mess they created. They still have really serious problems, but promising developments for anybody who's optimistic about Wisła's chances. Dave, you did call it.
I did call it. You look delighted, by the way, to be completely wrong about this.
Well, I'm not wrong. I just said that
I'm only joking. I
said that I wished that they get what they deserve.
It was a game changer.
That's what I want.
Getting Błaszczykowski in, because of the reputational pull he has, he can now start to pull in credible figures to help dig them out of Moira. So that's what I kind of saw happening when he got involved.
I think the second half of the season starts second week of February, I think. So we still have about 3 weeks before the kickoff of the second half of the season. So we'll see what happens.
We should go to a match and report live.
We should go to a match. Yeah, we'll see what we can do if we're allowed to go there.
We could review the sandwiches and the hot dogs.
Anybody who listens to this show probably won't let us in, but we'll see.
It's quite a big crowd, John.
And
I'm sure we could blend in.
What was the other big news? There's a big Polish footballer that is going to Italy for big money.
Yeah, Krzysztof Piontek, Mr. Friday, has moved to Genoa in July from Cracovia, and he has been burning Serie A alive. Nobody's ever seen it like this. 19 goals and 21 appearances since he moved to Italy.
Pretty good.
So he's already on his way to Milan, who I think are fourth in Serie A at the moment, going through a tough spell, Milan. But it's a big move for the kid, and it's pretty big news.
Do you know any of the exact numbers, money-wise?
30 million Great British pounds was paid for young Krzysztof. He has a nice little gunslinger, pistol-y celebration when he scores a goal, a la Robbie Keane post-commando role, and I like that, but probably that'll get him ran off Twitter for encouraging massacres or something, but, good luck to him.
So when he gets added to FIFA, the video game FIFA, they'll kind
He's already on FIFA.
He's on FIFA?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big deal. Does he have his pistol celebration on FIFA, I wonder?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I don't play FIFA, but nice. They rarely miss a detail like that.
Very nice. Well, that brings the news to an end. That's what you need to know this week. Don't forget to see our friends at bigdoor24.pl/KrakCast if you're looking to buy, sell, rent property and so on.
Promo code. Use it, people.
And thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the news.